Ladies and gentlemen, we have to talk about it. I'm usually not big on speculation, talking about trade rumors until it actually happens, but today we have one of the best in the game who may be on the move. And we've seen this has been an offseason of splashes. We've seen Derrick Henry go other places. We've seen these big time guys go to other teams. And I think that we may be looking at one last move before the NFL draft or one draft night that could actually happen this offseason. Let's dive straight in. Talks of a divorce between Brandon Aiyuk and the San Francisco 49ers are heating up. The soon-to-be fifth-year receiver has been visibly frustrated as Aiyuk and the 49ers appear to be further away from a contract extension that he would like. Last night, it was found that Brandon Aiyuk has unfollowed the 49ers social media page just weeks after an Instagram post saying money talks and you know what walks. Both the Ravens and the Steelers have been linked to the star wideout. What does this mean? And who is Brandon Aiyuk as a player? Why is he making these cryptic posts? Why is he making all of this noise as he goes into his fifth year? It's simply because he deserves that extension. This is what the NFL covets. This is why you're going to see 5 to 6, maybe even more wide receivers who go off in this first round of the NFL draft. They value this position, and especially if you're an X who can get off the press, who can run every route in the route tree, and who can go get a contested catch. Brandon Aiyuk checks every single box. I want to talk about some of these numbers before we dive really into it, talking about 49ers, talking about the Steelers and the Ravens aspect of this, just so we can see this is a big-time guy who's not just, we can't project what he's going to do in the future. No, he's gotten better year after year after year in this 49ers offense with Kyle Shanahan. Now, starting in 2020, he was a first-round draft pick, came out of Arizona State. 2020. 60 receptions, 748 yards. 2021, 56 receptions, 826 yards, 2022, 78 receptions, 1,015 yards. 2023, 75 receptions, 1,342 yards. And if you think he can't put the ball in the end zone, let's go back to 2020. 5 touchdowns, 5 in 2021, 8 in 2022, and 7 in 2023. So we're looking at the production, and it screams number one receiver. He's going to be doing this for a long time in the NFL, barring health. So now, when I'm thinking from the 49ers aspect of it, I dropped a video last year, and it was about week 5 in the NFL season. I said the 49ers are a powerhouse, and they were the best team in the NFL right then at that point, especially in the NFC. And when I talked about that offense, I said, okay, Deebo Samuel, best receiver after the catch. Christian McCaffrey, best running back in the league last year, MVP candidate. You talk about Trent Williams on the offensive line. George Kittle, mismatch nightmare. He's like a lineman, an extension of lineman in the running game, and we know what he does in the pass catching game. Now, Brock Purdy running the show, doing all of those things. But I said, if we have this mismatch nightmare, really with Christian McCaffrey, because you can put him out, he can go in the slot and run routes like a receiver. If we have George Kittle right here, Deebo Samuel, best after the catch, who's going to be that guy that can really dictate some things and also shift coverages? That's Brandon Aiyuk. And I believe that's why this offense has been so scary, because if we're selling out to go stop George Kittle, if we're selling out to go stop Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, that's going to leave my guy one-on-one right there at the X position, out there on the numbers, and he's going to feast and he's going to eat, and the numbers show that he's been doing that. So when I talk about that from the 49ers aspect of it, you're playing with Brandon Aiyuk a little bit. I think this is a guy going into his 5th year. We know when you're that first round pick, you get that extension a year early. Right now is where Brandon Aiyuk should be getting his big time extension, looking at the wide receiver market saying, okay, where do I fit in this? I need to get my bag right now. I don't need to hit free agency. And for the 49ers to say, okay, we're going to move this thing along. And I don't think it's that the 49ers aren't trying to get something done, but somewhere along the lines, there's a disconnect. What are the years? What are the guarantees in this deal? What is the actual per year annual salary in this deal? Why can't we get this thing done? John Lynch, let me know something over there in San Francisco. So you say, okay, if we're going to scrap this and we make this trade with the Pittsburgh Steelers, we make this trade with the Baltimore Ravens, now we look at it from those two teams, what's their perspective on it? And I think when you go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to say, whoa, you think about the defense that they already have over there in Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. Russell Wilson currently slated as a starter right now. George Pickens, absolute dog. but we got to put somebody beside him. Quez Watkins, solid. Calvin Austin, solid. But they need that guy who's going to consistently be a down-to-down, reliable target out there on the perimeter. And I think Brandon Aiyuk could bring that to this football team. Look in the backfield. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren. Now, I'm thinking if San Francisco were to make this trade, you're probably giving up a 1 because not only are we getting a guy who's a number 1 receiver in the NFL, all-pro, Pro Bowl candidate, we're getting a guy who we have to pay a big-time, massive deal, top 10 receiver money. So I think that warrants a first-round pick just off the bat. And we say the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're picking at 20 in the NFL draft. So now you have to say, okay, we feel pretty confident. Maybe we could still add to the offensive line. Maybe if we want to add corner, we're going to have to do that on day 2, day 3. But we can't get it right there at 20 because we trade this first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. And I think also Adonai Mitchell, Brian Thomas Jr., those are guys who could possibly be on the board for Pittsburgh right there at 20. But you get Brandon Aiyuk, we say, okay, we scrapped that. Now we got to go with some other needs in these later rounds. And like I said, I have to love it, especially for Russ, a guy who's trying to have that resurgence. They have the run game. Now you bring over Arthur Smith. Is he going to use his playmakers? That's something we have to think about there. But overall, when I'm talking about Aiyuk, I'm talking about, okay, combination of Quez and Calvin Austin over there in the slot. I'm looking at the other side, George Pickens, and I'm looking at the backfield, Broderick Jones. He's going to develop. You got Isaac Seumalo, James Daniels on the other side. Very, very solid offense, and you have to like what your chances are in the AFC North. But we get over there to that team that's also in the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Let's think about it for a second. What would Brandon Aiyuk bring to that football team? Derrick Henry, Zay, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely. We're still looking at that offensive line there. And I think also they could go offensive line. They pick at 31. So we're going to have to say, okay, now if we're looking right here, actually they pick at 30 because they didn't make the Super Bowl. So we're looking at it and say, okay, we pick right here. I think tackles on the cards, wide receiver is definitely on the cards there. But if we get Brandon Aiyuk, a position that we likely could draft with our actual first round pick, I'm saying, okay, you got it. You can slide right in there, San Francisco 49ers. That would give you 2 back-to-back picks in the back end of the first round. Then we could say, okay, if we have 31 and 30, could we trade up and get Brandon Aiyuk's replacement, who could be Adonai Mitchell, who could be Brian Thomas Jr.? Now you start to see the process and think about it a little bit. That could be more likely, but you also say, if we got that 20th pick, now what is the ammo looking like? Because there's the Chicago Bears who want to get some more capital. There's other teams who want to get more capital. Now, what could we possibly do with those draft picks if we get that Pittsburgh Steelers 20 overall selection? But back to the Baltimore Ravens, though. I'm thinking, okay, we're going to have to stack the box. It's Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. What is the read option going to be like? What is the design quarterback run game going to be like? What is the traditional run game going to be like with Todd Monken calling those plays? Didn't want to run the ball for some reason in the AFC Championship game, but we're going to let him breathe a little bit. Now getting back to it, you say, Zay, Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, just think about what that 2x2 set would look like. Think about what that 3x1 set would look like with Brandon Aiyuk in an offense like that. And just think about it. Okay, we understand our defensive coordinator, he's not a head coach for the Seattle Seahawks, but we still got some pieces. We retained Justin Madubuike. We still got Kyle Hamilton over there in the back, and we still got Marlon Humphrey. Patrick Queen has left, but we still got Big Rowe. I'm looking at 2 very competitive teams in the AFC North, and I'm thinking if they get a receiver like Brandon Aiyuk, it will be scary for both teams. So San Francisco 49ers, back to you before we close this video off. If I'm in your situation and if I'm in this given scenario, I'm doing everything I can to keep Brandon Aiyuk. I've watched the film. This is a football team I've watched closely. Brandon Aiyuk is a game changer. You see the catch that he made on Kendall Vildor over there in the NFC Championship game versus the Detroit Lions. Catches like that, that's why you get a football player like Brandon Aiyuk. I have to do what I can to keep him. I understand what the market is going to be. And I think the reason that it stings is because I've paid Nick Bosa. We have to keep Fred Warner. I'm looking at Christian McCaffrey. He commands a bag. We just gave Deebo Samuel his own bag, and Brock Purdy is slowly but steady coming up. So even with the guys that we already have in-house, how many people can we retain? How much money do we have to offer? It's a conversation to be had. I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments. What team will we see Brandon Aiyuk on in 2024? San Francisco, Baltimore, Pittsburgh Steelers, Or is there another team you want to throw in there? Who's the dark horse to get Brandon Aiyuk? Let me know down below. But that's going to do it for today's show. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And now, we out.